Viltrox recently asked me to test their new 24mm F1.8 lens for Sony, so this weekend I decided to only use this lens for a trip here to an elephant camp, which was really nice. So I would say let's have a look at what I got there and if I can recommend this lens. I think I never met an elephant with horns. Okay, I would say let's start with the build quality, which is really good. The lens has an all metal construction, and I still remember when I opened the box, my first impression was like, wow, this lens looks really good. Which is obviously because of the metal, but also because of the sun hood. The sun hood is actually plastic, but the sun hood has these grips, which makes it a bit better to screw, but it also looks really nice. It was likely because I was so impressed of it. And regarding size and weight, it weighs 374 grams and is 85 millimeters long, so it's a pretty small and lightweight lens, what makes it travel friendly. But there is a downside for travel, and this is that there's no weather resistance included, which is not a big issue, to be honest. I actually used it in slight rain and I did not have any issues there. And this lens also comes with an aperture ring, which some people might prefer. I personally don't really need it, but if you want to change the aperture to expose your shot while you're shooting, then it's actually pretty nice because it's stepless. But I personally always use the same aperture, so I don't really need that ring. I just keep it to A for auto and then I can set it in camera. But there I noticed a little issue. It's like sometimes when I put the camera up and I maybe touched it before, so then this ring was slightly off from A and then it automatically switches to aperture 16 already. Just be aware of that. It's not a big issue though, because you see it directly on your screen, but in the first place it was a bit weird. And that's all for the build quality. It's really good overall. I have nothing really to complain there. But even more important than the build quality are, of course, the optical qualities of this lens. So let's start with the sharpness here. The sharpness of this lens is actually really good. On my A7S III, where you only need 12 megapixels, really, the footage looks super detailed. I absolutely like it. And as far as I know from photography reviews, even for 61 megapixel cameras, you won't have any issues. It's sharp enough. So as a videographer, this lens is plenty enough regarding sharpness and contrast. And then there's also color rendition, and colors of this lens are really nice as well. It is a little bit more on the warmer side, but I generally prefer that, as you probably know from my videos. So you see the footage here looks absolutely great. Nothing to complain when it comes to colors. But of course, there are also a few weaknesses on this lens when it comes to optical qualities, and that is at first vignetting. There is a bit of vignetting in some of my shots, especially when it gets a bit darker, but in most of my shots it's actually fine. And it's generally for videography. The top and bottom part of the sensor get cut off anyway, because you don't shoot 4:3, you shoot 16:9, so you notice a bit less vignetting as a photographer would notice, but in some shots you can see it. And then the next weakness of this lens is chromatic aberrations. And chromatic aberrations, it's kind of the same. Like, I didn't notice any in most of my shots, but in some shots I can see it. For my footage, it's not really an issue, but if you really want to have the strongest optical qualities, you don't want to have chromatic aberrations in your shots, then you would go for a G Master lens, but this is also $1,000 more, so it's a completely different price range. And I think that for around $430, this lens performs really good optically. And let's also talk about autofocus, and it performs exactly the same as my Tamron lenses and Samyang, etc. Like, it's always spot on. You can see it here right now. It tracks my face perfectly. I also used this lens to record the A-roll of last week's video, and there it was also spot on, never lost my face. Also, when I was with the elephants here and I did object tracking, it was also always spot on, never lost the subject or so. So the autofocus is really good, and the autofocus motor is also quiet. Like, I never heard it even in my studio. I could never hear anything from the motor, and the microphone also didn't pick anything up, so no complaints there. The only weakness regarding focus of this lens is really the minimum focus distance, because that's 30 centimeters, which is pretty long for a lens like that. So I would love if that would be a bit lower at like 20 centimeters or so. And right now I do manual focusing here a bit. Let's do it pretty fast on the background, and now quickly back around on my face again. And I must say the focus by wire system here is one of the better ones. It's definitely more usable than some other lenses that I have. Yeah, so it's still focus by wire. It is not perfect, but it is not bad overall if you want to manually focus this lens. And just forgot to mention that before, this lens also has pretty nice sun stars if you use higher apertures, which is great, but I can't test it for astrophotography right now because it's rainy season here and we have clouds every day. Okay, I would say let's also talk a bit more about how this lens performed practically during the weekend. I will blend in some footage here so you see how it looks. And I can only say that I really love the footage from this lens because of the combination of this 1.8 aperture with the 24mm. It just looks really pleasing. And what I like about it is that at 24mm you can do a lot with this lens. Like, you can use it for vlogging, as you can see here. Now, how is this lens for vlogging? I mean, 24mm is not that wide anymore, not as wide as I'm used to. But I must say I actually like the look of this lens because it's a bit closer, and at f1.8 you actually get really nice shallow depth of field. So this background blur here, what you see if you don't know what shallow depth of field is, and it looks great. I like this lens for vlogging actually because you can vlog, but you can also shoot a lot of B-roll with it, as you could see in this video already. Especially because that bokeh is not too strong, you still see what is in the background, so you see what is around your main subject, but there is still this nice blur effect in there, and I really like this look. So overall, I think for travel videos, but also probably some documentary filmmaking and so on, this is a really nice focal length in general, or combination of focal length and aperture, and also a very usable lens in general if you want to save some money. So if you're looking for a prime lens in the $400 and $500 range, this is definitely a lens that I can recommend because the video footage looks really nice and it's also very versatile. You can use it for vlogging, you can use it inside your studio, you can shoot B-roll with it. There's so much you can do with this lens, so you get a lot for the price there. I must say though, I'm still looking into the G Master lens, the 24mm 1.4, because I want to build a solid stack of high quality glass for my Sony a7S III. So I'm planning to get the 24 G Master and the 135 G Master, and probably something in between as well. But I must say it's a $1,000 difference, and I would not say that you really get $1,000 more in quality when you buy a G Master lens over this lens. It's really just for professionals that want to really look good in front of their clients, or for your own perfectionism like it is for myself. I hope you enjoyed this review. If yes, then please leave me a thumbs up and also consider subscribing for upcoming reviews and tutorials. Hope to see you next week. Our motorbike stopped working, now we have to walk back. I think my girlfriend thinks that I just crashed the drone, which she also did, but that's not the reason why we're late.